Alan and I want to talk to you about a new way to sell your home. Hey, Alan.
Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. I'm wearing my EXP shirt today.
Nice. I like it.
You like that?
It's nice. I need one. So, talk to us about what why even come up with like a new way to sell the house? Like what are you seeing?
Well, right now, as a real estate agent, it is a bit hard to actually figure out what the market will pay for your house. There's a few issues with that. One, there are so few homes that have sold, it's really hard to compare houses. Um, and because the market is in a shift, we're coming from this really frenzied multiple offer situation to definitely homes with high sales prices. So sales prices have not gone down, but we're not in that frenzy anymore, where we're just absolutely every single house hits the market sells in
Right.
5 seconds. the
Well, people
variety
are
of
also seeing like if you're watching the market, you're seeing like longer days on market. We're seeing price reductions or price improvements, excuse
price
me.
improvements.
So I think like I mean that's while that's good news for the buyers, it may not be great news for the sellers. And so for us, we always like to try to stay in front of the market. And so this new plan we've actually been using for a few months now because we could see it happening, right? Like we could see this market softening. And I think many of our colleagues could as well. And we're all thinking, like, well, what do we do? And also like the world of real estate is changing, right? Like what what makes sense. Oh, Amber said she's gotten three price emails in the last week about price improvements.
Yeah.
So those would be from other agents saying, hey, you showed this house and now we have a different price.
hmm
Um, so yeah, tell us. Well, let me also tell people this new way of selling houses because we are actually international. Our company is international, so we have contact with agents all over the world, and so this is a platform that they use in Australia a lot.
hmm
So
Yeah.
tell us
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, so what we want to do is do a couple things. We want as many people to see the house as possible,
Right.
and we want to make sure that the price is accurate.
Hmm.
Like I said, it's a little hard to decide now what the actual price is because of lack of inventory, um, lack of sales rather. So we want the market to tell us what they're willing to pay. What is
Right.
somebody willing to pay for the
The
house?
highest they're willing to pay.
Highest. And the only way to do that is to price it extremely low.
Hmm.
Again, not saying that the house is worth that, but sometimes 50%
Hmm.
of the value, because we want as many people to see it as possible. And we want people to bid on the house and put their bid in for what they would pay for the house. So it runs on a platform called Home Bids,
Hmm.
and it's somewhat like an eBay type of
Hmm.
scenario where there's a certain amount of time. It's a few days to a week, and we put it out there at a drastically reduced price so that everybody will see it, and then people put bids in for the house, and so the we know the top bid at the deadline, that person says, I am willing to pay this price. And then we have other bids underneath that, but we at least let the market tell us what the house is worth. And that's what we're trying to do as real estate
But I
agents.
mean, we can already see the questions, right? The questions are, and these are always the same questions that
Yeah.
we've gotten. Well, Alan, what if at the end we don't like the price?
If you don't like the price, you can reject all the offers. You don't have to accept any offer. And that's written in there as a part of the contract. You do not have to accept any price, any bid that somebody puts
Well, and
in.
I think the main point too is this process actually guarantees the highest price the market would pay. And let
Mhm.
me back up and like explain why. Like to your point, we're casting the widest net possible. And
Mhm.
yes, sometimes that net catches people that are not able to afford the home, right? However, when we cast that wide net, we on average are getting between 15 and 20 bids per property. So even the people that can't necessarily afford it at the end, they're the ones that start this process usually.
Right.
And they start the bids and this starts getting bid up. It also, because of the way we structure it, most sellers, they want to get the most amount of money for the house. They want to know, and they want like kind of the fewest headaches, right? So
Mhm.
one of the headaches in selling a house are the showings. I mean, it's a pain. Alan, they always want to come when it's the most inconvenient time for the seller. Like always, 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 hands down, all the time. So this eliminates that. We preset
Cool.
times that people can come through an open house, and that is the only time they're allowed to come. So for the seller, it's great. Also, they're only paying the listing agent. The buyer then pays a buyer's premium, which goes towards the buyer's agent commission.
Cool.
So the seller is actually netting not only more because of the expense is lower, but they're actually netting more because of this bidding effect. People want to win. People, it's, they want, and they can see all the bids. So it's fully transparent. Everybody's transparent. They're going to bid the highest they can bid. So
Yeah.
that also yields to more money for the seller.
I mean, what's not to like? You get the
I'm not
highest
sure.
amount for your house. You
Right.
don't have to have last minute showings.
Right.
You don't have to pay the full commission because the buyer is paying their buyer's agent. I mean, what's not to like?
I mean, you have to be able to stomach casting the wide net. Now,
Exactly.
when buyers search for property, they search bedrooms, bathrooms, location, and price,
Mhm.
right? Most of the time, like, we can't change the bedrooms, bathrooms, or location in most houses, right? So the only thing we can play with is the price.
Right.
So when you cast that wide net, it gets pushed out like everywhere. What are some other concerns besides that starting bid that you've seen from people or that you want to address?
Um, well, I think that the biggest thing, and you hit on it really, is that the seller will think, or the seller is concerned that others will think there's something wrong with the house because it's
Mhm.
priced at a low rate. We just have to get through that, and realize this is not a short sale. This is nothing. This
A
is not a
foreclosure. It's not even an
foreclosure,
auction.
not an auction. It's just a bid. But we're used to explaining that, so it's not. It. I understand that it can feel emotionally hard,
But it's
to
always
them.
emotional when you're
Right.
selling.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
But
from
one
the
of
buyer's point of view, I mean, we've had buyers that have been so frustrated because maybe they learned that they lost the house by like $1,000 and they were like, well, I was willing to pay that.
right, if
And
they'd
so
only known.
if they
Mhm.
only known, right,
Right.
exactly. And here it's fully transparent. Like they can see that Bobby bid, you know,
Right.
325 and they're like, "Oh, I'll pay 326." Like they
Yeah,
can see all
exactly.
of that.
It's all open, so it's all transparent. But now
Mhm.
when you think about it, when you see, sale signs for new builds, for example, if you notice a caveat, it says as low as
Mhm. Right.
250. You
Right.
know that that house finished is not gonna be
It's
250,000.
yeah, good
You
point.
know that. So, it's somewhat like that where it says as low as, then, you can figure out that it's probably gonna be more, and if you're
Yeah.
willing to pay more, that's great. What's our question here?
She wants to
Hamburger.
know, is there a minimum bid amount? And that's a good question.
That is
There
a good question.
yeah, there's no it's not an auction. So in an auction, in a reserve auction, you have like well, that's the bid that they would take. There is a starting bid, which I guess would be considered the minimum. So yes,
Yeah, that's the minimum bid. Yeah, it starts out at that. So,
but it
yes.
doesn't mean that they're going to accept it because this is just a platform to market the property. The sellers will take the three highest offers, we'll get them in writing from their real estate agent, and the sellers will have the opportunity to accept, reject, or counter those offers. So
Mhm,
oftentimes the buyers and the agents know that they are one of the top three, so they will put their best foot forward.
mhm.
We have a question here. What are the increments?
Yeah, so it's $1,000, and when as a buyer, as a bidder, they can go in and say their top is this amount,
Mhm,
and they can set it to auto bid. So if
mhm.
they're willing to pay up to this amount, every time someone bids a little higher than them, it will automatically increase their bid by $1,000 up
Right,
to where they will end. And then they may be out of the bid if they hit their total amount,
right.
but they might not.
But they might
Just
not. It just depends. And I
just
think for this the seller, it resolves a lot of heartache, right? It resolves a lot of you're paying your agent, the buyer is paying their agent.
mhm.
The you're limiting the showing, so eliminating the headache. It's really fast. I mean, it's
It's
really
really
fast.
I mean, you're
You're not on
talking a week.
yeah, it's a week. So you're not on the market for a long period of time. It just happens. And this is actually done nationwide, and we do weekly calls with our colleagues that are doing it across the nation. The only time that I've heard that it doesn't work, right, because that's a concern, is when an agent in Florida, caveat, she's a newer agent, she priced the property, a $275,000 property. She put it on the bidding platform for 365. So it's not going to work.
Right,
Like it has to, you have to cast the wide net. And the way
right,
we do that is with the price. And so she
right,
should have really put it on for something like 125.
right.
And that would have actually gotten her the results. And right now, they are on the market traditionally at, I think, even 325. Like it's still too high.
Yeah, unless you're going to drastically come out in a low price to cast the wide net, as you stated, then don't do the bidding process. Put it on the market as a normal, and that's fine. We can put
That's
it
fine.
on the market as a normal, market. But just so everybody is aware, this is only to set the sales price. Beyond that,
It's a regular
it's
sale.
a
Yeah.
regular sale. It's not an auction, meaning, you don't like hit the gavel and that person gets it, and
Right.
it's definitely a pricing bid. So we're finding out what the market is willing to pay,
Mhm.
and we allow them to submit offers. And the interesting part here, and we didn't talk about, is we offer those top three bidders to put an offer in,
Right.
and we tell them terms matter.
Right.
So some of the offers have come in for more
Right.
because they want to make sure that they're not guaranteed to get this house.
Right.
The other bidders could
But
actually offer.
right. Well, they do
So
often.
they often do. So terms matter, and the seller gets to look at all three offers and make a decision. They may say this one, or they may say none of them.
Right. Well, and I think to your point, like there's pros and cons to there's a lot of ways to sell houses. There are 1,000 ways to sell a house, and there's pros and cons to each way. And that's why it's important for us to collaborate with you, ask you a lot of questions as a seller so that we can fully understand. Like you could offer the home on financing. You could maybe decide to rent it. Like you could do traditional real estate. I mean, there's a lot of ways. It depends on your goal as a
Mm,
seller.
right.
So, yeah, Alan, if people are interested in learning more about the different ways to sell a house, maybe they have some more questions about this specific technique or marketing strategy, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Call or text 513-646-1488.
Awesome. Thank
Next time we
you.
got to get Amber on here. She's asking great
I
questions.
know. Great questions, Amber. All right. I'll see you later.
All right, take care.